Good morning and welcome to another episode of your favorite weekend current affairs and political analysis program, The Big Issue. My name is Godfred Akwito-Boafo, and for our listeners on City 973, I'm sure you are bracing up for what is going to be a busy week building up to the Christmas holidays, but we still have work to do. So today on The Big Issue, we'll spend time discussing quite a few significant events that have happened this weekend. The big one, of course, we went back to Parliament. It was the return of the Speaker of Parliament after a health break in the United Arab Emirates. Alban Suman Kingsford Backbench showed up in Parliament and made some pronouncements. But the significant event this week in Parliament was the approval of the appropriations bill 2021 for the 2022 fiscal year, but there is still controversy over the e-levy. Looks like that one is currently in limbo. Parliament went into recess yesterday quite late, and we are informed that that conversation, that debate will resume on Monday. So the e-levy chat is still hanging. But what we'll be discussing today on The Big Issue is just the pronouncements that were made by the Speaker on some of the things that have happened in Parliament's interpretation of some of the standing orders, some of the things that have become controversial in the public space, and also even the approval of the appropriations bill and what it means for this government going forward in 2022. We'll also spend time this morning on COVID after we're given an update by the Ghana Health Service on Thursday regarding the current state, and the President also spoke on measures. Land borders stay closed. Everybody's supposed to be careful, but hey, what needs to be done? Yesterday, massive concert in Accra. You would not think the President had spoken just the day before, whether social distancing happened or not. Those are issues that we'll discuss, but the state of COVID and mandatory vaccinations of a sort being put out by the government. And then in the third part of the show, we will discuss unemployment, because this week the Ghana Statistical Service has been putting out some unemployment numbers, and they are quite alarming. They seem to have gotten lost in the midst of e-levy and COVID, but the new unemployment numbers put out by the Ghana Statistical Service is something that should worry a lot of watchers, because according to Professor Samuel Kwabena Nim, we are looking at a 13.4% unemployment rate in Ghana, and he has called this a worrying development. So we'll try and break this down. What is the difference between this and other pieces of data that we have received over previous years regarding what the unemployment rate in Ghana is? So quite a bit to eat through today on the menu on The Big Issue. Stay tuned to City 973 and also to City TV later on for The Big Issue. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Big Issue, and as always, it's an interactive show, so I'll be taking your comments as and when you send them on the various topics that are on the table for discussion. We have two WhatsApp lines. You can reach us 0549986996, 0549986996, and 0550-585832, 0549986996, and 0550-585832. For those of you who prefer social media, you can also reach us via Twitter at City973 is the Twitter handle, at City973, CITI973. Use the hashtag The Big Issue, and you can gladly leave your comments and suggestions, and I'll get to them more. You can reach me on my own Twitter handle at East Sportsman, or just find Godfred Akwito-Boafo on Twitter, and I will also respond using the hashtag The Big Issue. And if you do miss out, don't worry, we are on YouTube, CityTube, CITITUBE. So if you miss out, you can always catch up. Just go to the YouTube channel. First thing to do, most important thing, subscribe to the channel, and then you can do a playback of the episodes that you have missed. Also, don't forget, we're on Facebook. on our various Facebook pages. So City 973 and the CTV Ghana. So you don't miss out on anything. Go there and share the link and let's get people watching and discussing. So that brings me to my first conversation. And sorry, I will introduce my guest for this after. But basically, like I said, the appropriations bill for the 2021 Appropriations Bill 2021 for the 2022 fiscal year has been passed. Now, though the approval is for government to expend 145 billion Ghana cedis, budgeted expenditure for the fiscal year is supposed to be 137 billion. But the additional 9.8 billion added to the total expenditure is to cater for amortization and clearance of arrears. Now, meanwhile, the minority have maintained that the e-transaction levy has not been passed despite the approval of the bill. They went out of their way to explain this, and I'll later on read the minority's press statements on developments regarding the 2022 budget consideration. But we'll first listen to excess of engagements in Parliament during the approval of the appropriations bill. We'll come in studio, hear the minority's press statement. We'll also hear from the Speaker of Parliament as well, and then we'll begin the conversation.
From the Consolidated Fund and other public funds for the purposes of financing government operations during the financial year commencing the first day of January 2022 and ending on the 31st day of December 2022. Mr. Speaker, I so submit. I thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to also speak to the Appropriations Bill 2021. Mr. Speaker, for the record, the amount that we are paying, the Ministry of Finance is asking for is 145.4 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that this amount is different from the total expenditure as stipulated in the budget statement. Mr. Speaker, you will note that in the budget statement, the total expenditure is 137 billion. But in the same budget statement, there is 7.9 billion for amortization. So if you are to add 7.9 billion and the 1.9 billion for arrears clearance, then you have the total appropriation. Mr. Speaker, arrears clearance and indeed amortization is not included in the expenditure allocation for the year concerned. So it is important for us to correct that information. Mr. Speaker, most importantly, we also need to understand that appropriations is only a summation of all the estimates that this House has approved. It does not mean that we have approved any revenue item. The Ministry of Finance is being given the permission to spend up to the amount that we are approving here today. Mr. Speaker, if the ministry exceeds appropriations, in fact, the Public Financial Management Act has sanctions that the Minister of Finance will have to face. Mr. Speaker, this government fails to raise revenue, they will have a responsibility to cut expenditure accordingly, or, Mr. Speaker, decide to borrow for the purposes of funding government expenditure. Mr. Speaker, let me put on record that what we are approving does not mean that we have approved the electronic transaction tax or any tax measure. We have not approved the e-levy. It is only an approval for expenditure to the tune
Many anticipated a ruling of the Speaker following his absence from the jurisdiction for over 2 weeks. The stalemate over the rejection or otherwise of the 2022 budget statement has been a matter of contention. Delivering the ruling, the Speaker first and foremost apologized to Ghanaians for the chaotic scenes in Parliament over the period.
I have taken my time to read the order paper, votes and proceedings, and the official reports of the days in issue. And I'm convinced we should accept the view of the conscience of the nation that we owe Ghanaians an apology, and I will proceed to do just that. As the head of Parliament, the voice of the legislature, who speaks for and on behalf of Parliament, hence the title Speaker, I, with all humility, apologize on behalf of the House and all the members for the aberrations of conduct and behavior of members on those days. I've taken responsibility for what happened in the House, and I admit the House is neither dignified nor exalted by those rancorous and unruly behavior of members. I promise to do everything within my power and authority to lead the House to chart a path of transformation, decency, and a change for the better.
The Speaker further laid out constitutional and other legal provisions to settle the matter of quorum and the powers of an acting Speaker, and reasoned that the 2022 budget statement had lawfully been rejected and the first Deputy Speaker erred in his interpretation of laws in leading the House to reinstate the budget.
The actions of the House therefore stands to me on Tuesday, 30th November 2021, bring into sharp focus. I want to take this because we will need to put the views in the official report of Parliament. There will be people who will be doing research in the future. It's not just a matter of in-camera discussions. What happened earlier on has been captured, and this response must also be captured. The actions of the House on Tuesday, 30th November 2021, bring into sharp focus the powers of a Deputy Speaker vis-à-vis that of the Speaker. On that day, the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament presiding found that the vote taken on the 26th of November rejecting the budget was null and void, and the requisite number was not present in accordance with Article 104 of the Constitution. The decision taken on the 30th of November 2021, which decision stated I acted ultra vires the Constitution. When I put the question on the 2022 budget statement economic policy of government, appears strange to me. The House was duly constituted for its work for the purposes of business, and voting in accordance with Articles 102 and 104 respectively, and the public record of the votes and proceedings of the House on the 26th of November lends credence to this position.
The Speaker took issue with the mode of transmission of modifications and concessions to the 2022 budget statement as presented to Parliament through a letter by the Minister for Finance, and made proposals to remedy the situation.
My first proposal is for the Minister responsible for Finance to come before the House with whether it's modified, revised, amended, or reenacted statement of the budget, with those modifications, concessions, amendments specifically captured in the document and known and accepted by the House. Those modifications, amendments, and concessions would then be adopted by the House, and the revised documents with the estimates will stand committed to the various committees of Parliament. I'm aware the committees have begun consideration of the estimates. My proposal is for that to be adopted, but for the committees to reconcile the revised estimates with what they have hitherto considered and submit a report for the consideration of the House.
The Speaker communicated to the House firmly that no consensus had been reached on the contentious matter of the e-levy.
I will not, and I mean what I say, I will not superintend over a parliament to frustrate or obstruct government business. But I will equally not preside over a weak house or be tagged as an errand boy of the executive arm of government. This House is fully focused in discharging its mandate and will do so without any fear or favor, affection, or ill will in ensuring the ultimate best interest of the Ghanaian people is served.
The Speaker concluded with a firm resolve not to obstruct government business or to superintend over a weak parliament.
But I'm told that before us is an order paper addendum where there's an item under presentation and first reading of bills through 2B, an item electronic transfer levy bill 2021. I've been persuaded that it is during the consideration of that bill that members will take decisions as to whether to approve the policy or principles of the bill and add to the details whether it's 1.75%, 1%, or 0.5%.
So that was the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kensford Bagbin, making some pronouncements on some pertinent questions that had appeared before him. So let's try and break that down. I will break this conversation into two. So the first part, I will look at him trying to settle some of the niggling issues of designation and powers and of procedure in Parliament regarding this power of a speaker, the powers of a deputy acting speaker. Do we actually have an acting speaker in our constitutional delineation? All these are things that we'll try and break down in the first half of this, and then the second part of the parliamentary conversation, we can have a look at the appropriations and the position of the minority regarding the 2022 budget statement. So by doing that, let me just introduce my guests quickly in studio. I'll be doing this with the Member of Parliament for Pulsar South, Dr. Clement Abbas-Apak. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to hear your voice, but today you are here physically.
Yes. It's been a while,
yes,
to be honest. And it's great to be here. And let me say good morning to our viewers. I know that anything about City FM is carried by Radio Bulsa. So I know the Bulsa people are listening. Ideally, I should have been home, but we all know why I'm not.
There's work to be done. Dr.
Park, So it's good to be here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Apak. And then also Dr. Abdul Jalil Ateku, lecturer at the Department of Political Science. Normally you see him on Zoom, but today he's here. He's decided to bring himself here as well. Doc, thank you for finding time for us this weekend.
Thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers, your listeners around the country and everywhere in the world.
Thank you very much. We'll also be joined as always by Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. Franklin, morning.
my good friend and good friends in the studio as well. Honorable Park, it's been a while.
It's been a while. I can see you've also grown a beard.
I was just about to mention that Franklin's attempts to grow a beard have not gone unnoticed, and we will discuss that in the fourth part of the program. The attempt of Franklin Kujo to grow a beard requires some deep analysis.
It is an e-beard. He has an e-beard.
And then, of course, Dr. Rashid Rahman is Executive Director, African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Alfred, and good morning, fellow panelists.
Thank you for joining us as always. So let me begin the conversation. I guess I will start from Dr. Rashid Rahman and then work my way in studio. Dr. Rahman, let's start with the pronouncements of the Speaker. Now, he came in to try and clear up what he felt were, for want of a better word, mistakes that had been made in procedure in his absence, and sought to clarify by stating cases and standing orders on what the position is regarding what a deputy speaker can do, what powers are available, then also what constitutes a quorum for the functions of Parliament. Listening to the Speaker make those pronouncements, what were your thoughts? Or what are your thoughts? Let me put it that way.
Well, thank you very much, Godfrey. You know, I thought that I had a Speaker of Parliament who came back to his seat and gauged the mood of the nation and realized that, you know, at this moment, what the nation needed most was leadership that would bring the two sides together. I had in him, you know, an approach by a statesman. I had in him, you know, an attempt to, from his point of view, set the records straight by making sure that, you know, he took, you know, exception to what happened in his absence. Godfrey, do you remember on your program a couple of weeks ago, I asked the two honorable members who were on the program with us, you know, have they imagined what would have happened if Speaker Bagbin was around and he did not travel, you know, from that Friday to the Monday? Well, I mean, we didn't get an answer to that question. So he sought to set the records straight. But at the same time, you know, many Ghanaians, I believe, were expecting, you know, fire for fire. They were expecting the Right Honorable Speaker to come and say, I'm undoing everything that happened in my absence, and then let's start from scratch. But he did not do that. I think he tried to say, look, mistakes have been made. But, you know, in his speech, at one point he said, we are where we are now, but we need to move forward. And so he offered, if you like, a pathway out of the crisis for both sides. And for me, I describe it as a pathway for both sides, you know, to save face. Because at the end of the day, the two sides can continue to disagree for as long as they want. They would eventually have to come back and find a way to meet in the middle and get the business of this country going. So Speaker Bagbin looked at the mood of the nation and realized that, you know, all eyes were on him on that day. Everybody was watching carefully to hear what he was going to say. And I thought he did the right thing, because for us, right from day one, we have been saying, you know, given the character of this parliament, the only way out would be continuous dialogue and continuous discussions between the two sides. Because, like I said a few weeks ago, I have seen parliaments on this continent that were gridlocked for an entire legislative mandate, where a speaker could not do anything at all because, there was a lot of wrangling and infighting between the sides in the House. And I believe we don't want that for our country. And so, in my view, the Right Honorable Speaker set the tone for the much-needed consensus and the much-needed dialogue that this Parliament is in search for some time now. And I hope that the two sides will take advantage of this pathway that has been created by the Right Honorable Speaker. I have heard, I just read before coming to this program, the First Deputy Speaker firing back and saying a number of things that have been attributed to him. I don't know whether those were true or not. If I were him, I think I would cease fire and stop maybe making any further statements that would, at this moment in time, try to endanger the shaky kind of compromise that we seem to be getting at. And again, Godfrey, I will go back to repeat what I said some weeks back. Perhaps it is about time that we took another look at the issue of the speaker, the deputy speakers, and who member of parliament, not member of parliament. You remember I was saying on this platform that, look, if you go to our neighboring country, Burkina Faso, as well as some of the Francophone countries, I've sat in some of the parliaments where at the beginning of proceedings, in order to establish quorum, a roll call is made and everybody's name is mentioned, including the speaker, and the speaker, as well as all his deputies, are members of parliament. Should that be something we should be looking at? Should we be clarifying, when does a deputy speaker remain solely a member of parliament, or a speaker, or both? I think these are all issues that would need to be looked at very, very carefully, because we don't want to sit here and then we see a repeat. We don't know what 2024 is going to produce for us in terms of the configuration of our parliament, but I think there are important lessons in this eighth parliament that would need to be taken very, very seriously by the leaders and by both sides of the House. Fortunately, the standing orders are still not completed. And I would imagine that maybe there are opportunities here that... sorry?
I said the new standing orders.
Indeed, the new standing orders, yes. A lot of work has been done. In fact, some of us have made contributions. I have worked with people in the office of the speaker to try and look at practices elsewhere and so on. But I believe now there are other issues that might have to be taken into account before this document is finalized. And then the majority leader was in the news a couple of days ago when he was also talking about looking at some aspects of the standing orders, including, chairing parliamentary committees and so on and so forth. I know he means well, and he means that he's serious about that, because we've had conversations, on that many times, including, many years ago when we went to other countries and then saw practices there, and he was very keen to bring that back home. I believe maybe what is standing between him and that perhaps is maybe the position of his caucus and so on and so forth. But I think there are a number of issues that would need to be looked at. And perhaps we might even have to do some work and define the kind of parliament that we want for our country, for today and for the future. And I think there are a number of ingredients that have been offered by the Right Honourable Speaker, as well as by the events during the approval of this budget.
Thank you for those initial comments, Dr. Rashid Rahman. Let me come to you, Franklin. And Dr. Rahman makes reference to basically the olive branch that the Speaker extended in his engagement over the week. But the Speaker also spent time to clarify what he feels is the position of Parliament's own rules on how certain things should be done. Now, having heard some responses in that regard as well, based on the pronouncements he made, and the suggestion from Dr. Rahman that we need to clarify some of these things, and we'll get into detail on that. How quickly do you think we should move forward on trying to resolve some of these grey areas that have emerged? Because the likelihood of this situation arising again is quite high.
Well, good morning, Dr. Draman, and thanks for the question, my good friend. First of all, as everybody seems to be saying, or everybody has said, these scenarios were expected the moment the numbers were thrown at us at election. We all knew there was going to be a hung parliament. And so to say we were not necessarily prepared for this would be an understatement. But of course, I also understand that now that we are here, what do we do going forward? Let me actually leave that for the next conversation, as you say. But just to address the issue, the Speaker, the substantive Speaker has come, the king has returned, isn't it? Has come to deal with. I'm a bit worried that even though he had been away for all this while, and we're hearing that there were overtures being made by both sides, or from the majority to the minority to, as it were, resolve the stalemate, nothing much had been done. I mean, in terms of progress, because if I heard the Speaker correctly, he's saying that, well, look, there are certain aspects of the budget that needs refining, and there are aspects that need some sort of, well, again, the word is, should I say, concessions and whatever. Amen. To think that weeks after we identified these matters, and the Speaker's absence, we still haven't made much progress. It's a bit worrying. I was expecting that the Speaker's first comments would essentially be saying that, look, in my absence, there's been some real leadership also shown. There's been some progress made, and we'll move from there. I don't know, because I'm not too sure that is what has happened. And I'm a bit worried, because to think that the matters are still subsisting and that we need to now go back to the drawing table makes me think that we haven't made much progress since his absence. And so for me, my thinking is that I really would want to see an update, a progress report. Dr. Park is in Parliament, and I'm sure he'll probably tell us. Because I was surprised to hear that the e-levy conversation had been put on hold. You know, that sets the clock a bit back long, and so that's my first reaction. I was expecting that Speaker's comments after all that happened would have been okay. This is where we are. Of course, he's apologized for what happened on behalf of Parliament, but I was expecting some sort of a timetable that said, well, look, this is where we are, this is what we are going to do. In my absence, this is what the leadership of the House had actually agreed upon, and I'll make sure we see to its conclusion. References to weakness of Parliament or strength of Parliament, well, I guess it's all part of the political jostling anyway. But I think we've reached a stage where we should start thinking about moving forward. And I also urge the majority to make the concessions critically known, because it appears as if there's no movement on the e-levy, the percentage. I'm a bit worried, because I thought that at least we're making progress by the several recommendations that have come from other quarters as to meeting the Ghanaian halfway. You know,
but Franklin, with that, what do you make of, since you've just mentioned that, I will just allow, even though we're not at that part of the conversation yet, what do you make of, because we did see pronouncements in the public space that the government had met telcos who had agreed to make certain reductions in cost to customers in order to enable the e-levy pass at the 1.75% that the government wants to go with. Although that is still a matter that has to be debated in Parliament, and Dr. Park will address that issue. You don't think that is some kind of progress?
Well, first of all, let's also admit that the cost of doing business generally affect the telcos as well. So I would have thought that the significant position to begin this conversation from would have been, why does data and basically general services provided by mobile phone companies cost so much in Ghana? It's not the doing of the mobile phone companies. It's the adverse economic environment. I mean, the charges, the imposition of the restrictions placed on these companies makes it difficult for them to realize their objectives. So they'll just pass on all these charges onto us. So it's refreshing to hear that the government or the ministry responsible has met the telcos and they've agreed. We have to understand, or we have to know the details of this agreement, because if it is not in sync with the general reduction in terms of doing business for the telcos, it's just a matter of time that this will be passed on in other ways to us anyway. I think this conversation we've had in times past, and so I'm happy to hear that. But I would have been happier to hear that the 240-something million Ghana cedis are located, and here again we don't know. I think it's a yearly figure. That will be that is supposed to be the administrative charge for monitoring these e-levy. I would have been happier if I heard that itself had either been dismembered or probably discontinued. But I haven't heard anything of that nature. And so we are where we are. And I can understand the crisis moment we currently find ourselves. There are options. Yes, going to the IMF is on the table, but I know that politically sounds like suicide. And so I think we need to hear a bit more on the concessions from the majority side. But all I'm saying is that I would have expected by now that there have been some creditable or credible progress or some sort of a timeline we can work with so that we put this behind us. I mean, otherwise the stalemate doesn't help anybody.
All right, thank you, Franklin. Let me come in then and deal with Dr. Abdul Jalil Ateku.
So I get to have the last bite.
Yes.
Because I have been in the theater.
You are an active player.
Very well. It makes sense.
Yeah. Dr. Ateku, what did you make of what happened in Parliament? And I want to, in this part, particularly focus on the Speaker's attempts to clarify certain issues. But because I've heard those who say there are still lingering questions to the constitutional function of a deputy speaker, the administrative functions of a deputy speaker, the special quorum requirement for a decision when a deputy speaker is presiding, and then what it means to preside in Parliament itself, the very definition of what it means to preside. These are questions that have emerged from the incidents that occurred in Parliament in the absence of Speaker Bagbin. And upon his arrival, his interpretation of what exists, because we heard his inferences to, can the president, the vice president overturn this? There are those who agree, there are those who agree with that analogy. Did he make things clearer for you? Did his explanation of what the standing orders of Parliament mean in these scenarios clear things up for you?
All right, thank you very much, Godfred. Yes, for me, I would say when these issues started, I think I had a number of engagements. I spoke to a number of media houses, and my position has never departed, and it is not going to depart from on this program. The issue one one fact we must know, particularly the majority should know, is that if you're living in the past where, like in the previous parliament, where you have about 169 members of parliament, and the opposition, the NDC, having 106, this particular parliament is a hung parliament. That is the bottom line. And when you have such a parliament, you can be effective, right, in governing the country through proper, detailed consultation, broader consultation, building consensus with the other side. Other than that, you can't do anything. In fact, just I think about a week or so after the election, I was on another platform, and then this question was asked. And I said that this particular parliament, you need to build a broader consultation. And there was another person from the MPP side, and he said that, how can we build consensus with the NDC? And I said that, well, if you are not ready to do that, and that was just about a week after the declaration of the results. And I said, if you are not ready to do that, then be ready to face the problems. Listen, and these are some of the problems that we have seen, we have witnessed. All right? Because it is not the first time. Both the NDC, when the NDC was in government, they have to build relationship in order to get most of their policy decisions, everything through. And the same thing. So what has happened this time around is because 137. So if you want to live in the past, these are some of the problems that you face. And it is not going to stop until the majority realizes that they will have to, at every point in time, come together and then build that consensus, build that rapport with the other side. And that is where we are. Now, talking specifically about what had happened and then when the speaker came, why are we interested in that? It was because a decision was taken by the substantive speaker. All right? This is the speaker's understanding of the rules. And mind you, this is a speaker who has been in parliament for, several years. We call him the Mugabe. He was, some call him the wise man because
call him father.
They now call him father. So this is someone with that wealth of experience. Okay, so if you look at this, when the issues unfolded, particularly that when the budget was rejected, when the NDC was the only party that was in parliament, you realize that at a certain point in time he was giving, let me take some 5 minutes. If 5 minutes, it go to about 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Right? So it means that he was going to make sure that the decision that he will take will be the decision based on maybe the laws, the procedures they have in parliament, and then the practices over the years. All right? So that decision was taken. And then he left. Then the Tuesday, then parliament convened again, and this issue was brought back. So the issue is whether if a substantive speaker or even a deputy speaker presiding or performing the functions of the speaker, when he takes a decision with another speaker, okay, or a deputy speaker also coming to preside, can bring the issue back. So that's why from the beginning I said that this issue, I was thinking that maybe they could have gone to maybe the court, looking at the agency of the matter, so that we'll get a clarity, a direction on this. But unfortunately, a decision was taken by the deputy speaker who was presiding. And for me, the bizarre aspect was where he decided to count himself as a member of parliament. The question I asked some 2 weeks ago is that when Honorable Joe Wise entered parliament that day, he entered parliament as what?
A speaker.
As a speaker. You know? And the issue that they were talking about that, because he's a member of parliament, you have to be counted. The point is that even voting rights, which is critical to his constituents, have been taken over from him, that you can't vote. How much talk about the quorum? So that is where the issue is. For me, I took that position that when it happened, the position that I took was that for me, I saw everything wrong with that, because I believe that he entered parliament that day as a speaker. Okay, because he was there to perform the functions of the speaker, because the speaker was outside the jurisdiction. And that is where this is. So, but that is where the problem, the whole thing that became so murkier and all that. And now it now became something like politics, extreme partisan politics. So that is where they lost their bearing, right? Because minority now decided to be firm on the position. Now majority came back. When minority also left, they also took a decision. So once you can reverse a decision, the expectation is that Speaker Bagbin, when he comes back, it means that he can also reverse this decision. So that was why we're all left waiting to see what Bagbin would do. In fact, on another program, someone said that we are waiting for the real speaker to come. So there was that expectation that from maybe the NDC and other people, that when the speaker comes, they were expecting that something will happen. Then the speaker came, right? And at the end of everything, those names that we ascribed to him, the Mugabe and all that, he brought that to bear. And I think that the country benefited immensely from that. Because if you had decided to take this, once you can also reverse a decision that I have taken, as a substantive speaker, it means that I can also reverse that decision. But he decided that, look, I'll look at the issues. The decision I took, and he went through looking at, and he cited authorities, he cited existing practices of parliament, he cited, the constitution, he cited the standing orders and all that to make the case. Because the point is that the issue, so Rainer asked a test now, so for me that's where I see there is still a lacuna, there's still a gap. The budget was rejected, the budget is approved. So what is the record? Maybe Dr. Clement Apak will tell us, as we speak now, is it the budget, has it been rejected? Or has it been approved? I'm talking about the budget statement and then the economic policy, because still the NDC participated in the other sectorial estimate and all that, But that the budget statement and then the policy that was presented. So as we stand now, because it is important for us to know, so that going into the future, right, we do not know the type of parliament that we are going to have in 2024. In fact, I pray that we should be having this type of parliament. Seriously. Because if you look at, minority at this point, they were able to force the finance minister, the government, to make revisions, significant revisions.
Which hasn't happened in the history of the Fourth Republic.
Do you get it? Because at that point they were still there. If you have succeeded in maybe approving so and so, then we are waiting for you during the discussion, the review of the estimates and all that. So a number of revisions will have to be undertaken in order to get the buy-in of this. Look at the KTC defenders. I understand some 10 million, something was given for some visibility studies and all that. Had it not been the position taken by the minority, I do not think that the people they would have, maybe something would have gone into that. So I think that it is important. I'm happy that I think someone is at the court at the moment, at the Supreme Court or something like that.
I'm aware.
Is it?
Yes. I think it is somebody affiliated with your organization.
Or something. Yes, he's trying to get
seeking an interpretation from the court.
All right. Yes. So in fact, if they are able to look at these issues critically, because for us, like our colleague, is it Draman?
Yes,
Dr. Draman. Yes. He was talking about whether maybe we should look at whether maybe the French-speaking countries' parliament and then incorporate. I think that our constitution is very clear on the issue about the quorum. The Article 102 and then 104 is clear. So if we get interpretation from the Supreme Court, I think it will settle the matter. So that we know that, one, if a substantive speaker or even the deputy speaker is performing the function of a speaker, if upon the return of the speaker, he can reverse that decision or not, we should know. Do you get it? And as to whether, in terms of the formation, or in terms of the quorum, whether the presiding deputy speaker could also count himself as this, I think that this can easily be interpreted by the Supreme Court, and then it will settle this matter. But for me, I think that it's just because it has become partisan. Other than that, for me, it is clear. For me, from where I sit, I think that it is clear.
Okay.
That is my view. So basically, for looking at the situation now the major issue has to do with the e-levy. All right, e-levy. In fact, I don't know the calculation the majority side made, and that's why from the beginning I said that it was the failure of the majority, the finance minister, to do what was right. Because so if you could revise, you could engage that. So why didn't you do that
prior to presentation
of the budget, because one, the e-levy issue came it was in the public space. Media, mainstream media, social media, and what have you. People discussed that. People showed their version for another introduction of the e-levy. People asked whether the bauxite, the gold, and what and not with that we still having problems with development. So coming to tax another 1.7 on 1.75 on Momo and all that. So these were the issues. And I think minority made their position clear on this. But the government went ahead to push it through. And then now this is where we are. It is still hanging. If you at certain point in time,
to push it. It has not been pushed through yet.
Yeah, they're trying to. Yeah, it's not gone yet. Yeah, exactly. So, at certain point in time, particularly, I think that was after the second approval. We heard that there were some concessions. At certain point, the minority leader made the statement that he was getting convinced about the government officials, this and that. So even about maybe 1% or so. And I think another prof I was with a member of parliament for the MPP, I think, and he also said that they were also coming a bit down to about 1.5 or so. And I said, okay, well, it means that they are coming closer. Then the finance minister held a press conference and said that it was still 1.75. Right. Then the NDC also went back to their 0% for the e-levy. So it means that there's something, it is for me, the majority side, the government will need to do detailed consultation on this e-levy thing. Because right now, they factored it into the budget. Okay, so if the 1.75 is taken out of it, it means that there will be a gap. And in fact, I'm always for generating resources within in order to build our economy in the most sustainable way, right? But it should be done in such a manner that people will also not negatively suffer from it. So if it's a 1.75, people are complaining. So why won't you start from maybe a base somewhere? Maybe it's 0.5, 0.6, 0.8, so that gradually because VAT also met the same stiff resistance in 1995, the Kumi-Preko, Semi-Preko demonstrations. And it took about 3 years or so, from 95 to about 1998 or so, before it was implemented. I think it was 17.5. They have to reduce it to about 12.5 or so, right? So it means that taxation itself is always a problem, because not that citizens do not want to pay taxes, right? But the issue is that they want to see what their taxes are being used for. So but if they are not seeing that, and then you want to, the little that they are also getting from somewhere, you want to take it away, certainly there will be resistance. So, and it also became political or partisan, because one, NDC also recognizes that there are a number of people who were against the 1.75. So if they go ahead to say that, okay, we agree 1.2, people can easily say that, oh, you see them, they are the same. They are all the same. After the series of what in this thing. So there is a whole this in there. But I think that majority side will have to build very strong relationship with them, have to engage them. They have to, and then the NDC should also make their case clear. Maybe at this point in time, maybe I think that if you put it at this percentage, you'll be able to generate this. The government should also make it very clear. I think that they need to engage. Greater. But for back when he came, I think that he brought a lot of sanity to Parliament. He actually went through the whole process. He justified why he took those decisions, and he felt that he was still, within the law, within the procedures, the existing practices, and all that, and he acted within that. So that is the position. But he said that despite all this, even though he believed that the reversal, that's why he was whether the budget has been approved, whether it has been amended, reversed, when what have you, we have a country. The country, we have we need resources for the economy. The country must be run and all those type of things. So I saw his statement was very conciliatory. Okay, and I think that Parliament will have to build on that. Both sides, the majority and then minority side, will have to build on whatever has happened from the Speaker's point of view. He's been very neutral. Okay, even though maybe in the parties like the NDC, there are some hawks who would have expected him to take a particular position, but he exerted himself as a statesman. And then he gave a direction, and I think that they should follow through. So if indeed the Honorable Joe White is also responding to some of these things, I have not heard, but from this, and I think that may be unfortunate, because at a certain point in time, you allow certain things to prevail. They say, let the citizen not lie. Because it is you, the government, you have so many things to do, okay? So at a certain point, you have to accept certain things, okay? It's not everything that you come public trying to justify anything. When you need the other side, all right? If you need me, don't create problems for me, and also ask me to give you my support. So they need to be very tactful, very diplomatic in their engagement to be able to build.
All right.
Yes.
So now we have the man himself who's in Parliament, Dr. Clement Abbas Apak. We'll try and put two issues together for him on the pronouncements and then.
So you want to read our statement?
Oh, no, I will read the statement. I will certainly read the statement, but I'll take a quick break. When I return, I read that statement, then we hear from Dr. Clement Apak. Okay, so welcome back to the big issue on City 973 and also on City TV. My name is Godfred Akotoba for discussing the happenings in Parliament this week. Very significant. We have the appropriations bill passed. The e-levy is still hanging. Pronouncements made by Speaker Bagbin on what quorum means in Parliament and the functions of a deputy speaker and the absence of the speaker. And all those things have come up, and that is what we are trying to break down in the first part of the show. I'm just going to put two things together because I have Dr. Clement Apak coming up, but you can also send your comments on the conversation so far. What's up? We have two lines, 0549986996 and 0550585832, 0549986996 and 0550585832 to send your messages via WhatsApp line. So I'm just going to read the minority's press statement, and then I'll get Dr. Apak's thoughts on the two things that have happened, which is this one. So the minority issued a statement late yesterday on the developments regarding the 2022 budget consideration. And it's quite lengthy, but I'll try and read everything here. It says the minority group in Parliament has since the beginning of this Parliament demonstrated fidelity to the collective aspirations of the people of this country, and most importantly to the Constitution of the Republic. In commitment to these democratic tenets, the group on some occasions have been the subject of attacks by otherwise concerned members of its own political party. It is therefore without basis for anyone to suggest that this minority group seeks to obstruct government business at the least opportunity. On the contrary, we have at every instance demonstrated commitment to good governance, the 1992 Constitution and the standing orders of Parliament. An objective overview of the group's stance on the current budget amplifies our fidelity to the national interest. Right after the Minister for Finance presented the government's budget on behalf of the President, the minority group through its leadership indicated its opposition to aspects of the budget and called for a review, failure of which would compel the minority to reject the budget. Consistent with this call for a review, which were not heeded to, the minority got the required votes to reject the budget policy on the 26th November 2021. The majority responded to this lawful rejection with an irregular and illegal procedure purporting to rescind the earlier rejection, and the nation looked on as they debased, in their usual fashion, democratic tenets. The minority's efforts to reverse such a rape of the Constitution and gross disrespect of Parliament's standing orders were frustrated by an extremely partisan majority group and the first Deputy Speaker. Nonetheless, the minority group's action compelled an engagement with the Finance Minister, who have since made all concessions but one, which is the e-levy, on behalf of the President. He has written officially to Parliament to modify the initial budget statement to reflect these concessions. Taking into consideration these concessions and modifications to the 2022 budget statement and economic policy, the minority have since examined the sector ministry's estimates, but remain vehemently opposed to that which the government remains adamant to withdraw, the killer e-levy of 1.75%, which undoubtedly will subject Ghanaians to immense financial pressure and further thwart our nation's ease of doing business and digitization drive. The appropriation bill for 2021 to cater for ordinary government business for 2022 has just been passed. The killer e-levy bill has yet to be considered by Parliament. For the avoidance of doubt, the minority continues its opposition to the e-levy. We in the minority remain committed to exploring lawful and democratic means of getting the government to abandon this insensitive, obnoxious and regressive tax. Absolutely nothing can be more Ghanaian and progressive at this stage than a demand that governments consider the economic challenges of the ordinary Ghanaian in rolling out taxes. We shall continue to hold governments accountable and do so in the best interest of this country at all times. Thank you. Signed by Minority Leader Honorable Haruna Idrisu. So let me bring in the Member of Parliament for Busa South, Dr. Clement Abasapak. And you have been in Parliament all through this week when the Speaker returned. Is this what you were expecting to hear from him and the pronouncements he has made? Has he settled, in your estimation, some of the grey areas that seem to have raised such contentious debate during the period of his absence? We saw your side agreeing, we saw Jinapo on his feet, we saw the Honorable Muhammad Ayaga quoting aspects of the law. It was pretty vigorous debate in Parliament on this matter. And then also you can add to that the current situation of the current position of the minority on the e-levy and where we are.
Well, first of all, let me say good morning again to you and my co-panelists, and to indicate that ideally I should be heading towards the central region. As many Ghanaians know, one of the stalwarts of our party, I'm speaking about the late Ama Benyuado. Today is the day that we are laying her to rest. So some of us have had to stay back to hold the fort. And given her own background, her history in the party as an MP, women's leader, communicator, I know she would understand that some of us have to continue what she was a part of. So we know that she will be duly giving her place in the bosom of the Lord, and we continue to express our sympathies to immediate family and friends. It's a loss not just to the NDC, but to Ghana as a whole. There's also a number of colleagues who are burying a mother or a father. So these are challenging times for a number of people personally. And let me also quickly add that as a former Deputy Chief Vandal, this panel, at least in the studio, is made up of alumni of the Great Commonwealth. And as a former national organizer of the All Vandals Association, I cannot deny acknowledging that. It's yet another indication of who we are, our spirit, and our can-do attitude, regardless of politics. And it cuts across, as you know. So it must be said. We are the only real legitimate hall that can make things happen. And the products of Commonwealth Hall, everyone knows. I mean, from John Mama to the Chief Justice, and I can name them. We are many, from all sides of the divide. Now let's come to the substantive issue. Quite honestly, what transpired within the context of considering the 2022 budget statement and economic policy presented by government, which is a constitutional requirement, is historic. Whether you like it or not, positive, negative, what has happened clearly is going to be a matter of discussion and research for many years to come. And I think that was not lost on the Speaker when he was making his comments. He made allusions to that. I have been part of the process from beginning till now, and it's still ongoing. We have not concluded on this issue. But you see, sometimes we need to take a step back and look at the variables that precipitate certain outcomes. There is no doubt in my mind, and I think the Speaker was very clear when he took his time to take us through, and he said it, that it was also his responsibility not just to analyze and present in a formal way his opinions and views about what has happened, but also to educate the Ghanaian people, and even we members of Parliament, on what has happened and where we are. But the truth is that there was no legal or constitutional basis for the first Deputy Speaker to have done what he did after the Speaker had properly, legitimately, duly, and constitutionally Also, as indicated in our standing orders, superintendent over proceedings of Parliament, and to reach a decision. And as he said,
but let's also be clear that at that moment that is still an opinion.
No, parliamentary walkouts are allowed. But when you walk out, does not mean that the work of Parliament has to come to a halt. And you see, what many don't know is that, and you do, because you do the research, you follow the issues, but many Ghanaians don't know this. The processes that were unfolding before the majority group decided to walk out were at the behest of the majority group. We had gone through and reached a stage where we're going to take a vote. Then you ask for a division. So the Speaker takes his time to copiously go through the processes that ought to unfold when a division is requested. In that process, you decide to, as somebody would say, quote unquote, vamoose. You left on your own accord without even giving the Speaker the courtesy of knowing why you left. Traditionally, if a side decides to walk out, the leadership of that side will rise and then indicate to the Speaker that because of A, B, and C, we on this side can no longer participate in proceedings and therefore we are walking out. You didn't do that. You rather instigated your first-time MP to cause commotion, and on the back of that, you left. And we know that a first-time MP cannot have the gravitas or the weight to do what OPK did. He was instructed to do. It was a strategy. Because at that time, they knew they didn't have the numbers. And that is important. Give as it may, the Speaker, given who he is, and we've all acknowledged his history, his background, in fact, he's an institution. He is a creature of the Fourth Republic. From the very first Parliament to now, the 8th Parliament, he has been part. As an MP from the first Parliament to the 7th Parliament, and the 8th Parliament, he becomes the Speaker. He is one of the authors of the current standing orders. As Dr. Rashid Dramani even indicated, the revised standing orders, the new ones that are coming, he has been the architect. So the man knows what he is doing. And as far as the rules of engagement are concerned, he did the right thing. Be as it may, he left. A decision was made to reverse it. We chose not to participate. After that, processes were ongoing. And some of us had anticipated, or we thought that given what had happened in the absence of the Speaker, upon his return, we could see a reversal of what had been reinstated, which was reversed. So you are right. There was a lot of anticipation. People like me, I was in public. I said, look, we are all eagerly and anxiously waiting for the legitimate Speaker to return. He did. Now, I would commend him because what he did was truly a very delicate balancing act. Me, Dr. Clement Abasina Bapak, from Dorninga in the Upper East region. There is no way I would have done what the Speaker did. I would have reversed the decision. But I am not the Speaker. Where he sits and where I am, entirely different. His responsibility is to Ghanaians. My responsibility is to my constituents and my party, Ghana as well. But he has that responsibility to keep the system going so that the nation can move on. But we know from the grapevine that the Speaker was prevailed upon. Because clearly, as he himself said during the presentation of his thesis, and he's a man who likes doing research. I mean, you don't make a decision in that analogy in the cabinet. And then you are going to take a break, or you are unavoidably absent from the next cabinet meeting. And then your vice president then comes to reverse the decision that you have made. Plain and simple. But he decided that what has happened has happened. Let's move on as a nation. These are the things that I think that we should do moving forward. So I commend him. I think many Ghanaians have commended him. But some of us, if we were the Right Honorable Speaker, clearly I could have told you that this nation would have been in crisis. There is no way I wouldn't have reversed what was reinstated. So yes, he has come, he has acknowledged, he has stated, he has pointed out that what happened in his absence was not right.
But you feel the need to...
It ought not to have been done. But reversing it also comes with its own problems. So let's accept that things were not done properly. In fact, he essentially chastised the first deputy speaker. I mean, it wasn't like in your face, but if you have read the statement, it is obvious that he cut him to size. And that is why, if I were the Honorable Joe Osewusu, you should let sleeping dogs lie. You shouldn't be commenting about this issue. But you see, where are we? Concessions have been made. Decisions have been changed. And I'm speaking to the thorny issues. There were 5 that we identified. The wording in the original budget, because what we are dealing with now is not original. And that is even another area that we seek clarification. I mean, you don't amend the budget and then say that it is what it is. Once you've made changes, it is new. But the politics of it, they will not admit. And we also insist. But the point is that they have decided to remove matters to do with Ejapa, which was one of our challenges. They have decided to do something about the benchmark. They have also decided to reword the content that sought to create the impression that Parliament had already given approval for the ICA deal to go through, when that was not the case. And as was mentioned earlier, provision has now been made, even if minimum, to start addressing the matter to do with the Bokuso sea fence wall. The big one, now I don't want to use the word elephant, but I'll use it advisedly. The big elephant in the chamber, in Parliament now, continues to be the killer. As you read, we call it killer. The killer e-levy. And there is no compromise. I can tell you an authority.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to ask, there seems to be a flip-flopping. Is it 1, 0.5?
There is no compromise as far as our side is concerned.
So you want it off?
There would not be a compromise. Our position continues to be no e-levy. And the Speaker himself admitted that even after his return and engaging with both sides in leadership, all the other issues, it looks as though we can move on with the adjustments that he suggested, that we should not truncate the processes that were ongoing at the committee level, but we should factor in some of these, if you like, concessions, quote unquote. But for the e-levy, there was no movement from either side. So we have not moved, they have not moved, and the only thing that can resolve this is a vote. In fact, we left the precincts of Parliament. In fact, we rose at 1 a.m. this morning. Yes. We rose at 1 a.m. this morning.
And you have still not made headway on this?
No. That was not even a matter to be discussed. You see, the bill had to go to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee would have to deliberate and then write a report. That report will then come to plenary. It will then be laid. Then we debate it and then vote. So the whole of yesterday, the Finance Committee could not reach a consensus because you have entrenched positions. We say 0, they say 1.75. So there was no consensus. So what happened was that was isolated. So it was not included in any deliberations that we had. So if you look at the appropriations bill that we even passed at around 1 a.m., this morning, there is nothing about e-levy in it. So what is going to happen is that Monday, we are going to reconvene, and we have called it Killer E-levy Monday. We are going to be there in our numbers. 137 members of the National Democratic Congress will vote no as far as the e-levy is concerned. So, truth be told, all that has happened, we admit that as members of Parliament as an institution, we perhaps didn't acquit ourselves well. And as far as the expectations of Ghanaians are concerned. But that is democracy. In as difficult times as we are still getting along. I mean, nobody's pulling a knife or a gun. And that in itself ought to be celebrated. In many parts of the world, this cannot happen. Even in some of our neighboring countries. So in all of this, at least let's also see something positive. That our democracy has grown to a stage where at a time of a hung parliament with very contentious issues, at least we can be rambunctious, even projecting aggression, but nobody has done anything that we can say, has dented our democracy. Other disagreements, they would always happen. So in terms of our position, we are very clear in our minds that this issue of the killer e-levy is unacceptable to us, is unacceptable to Ghanaians. We continue to believe that there are alternative ways for government to raise the requisite resources. We believe that 6.9 billion, almost 7 billion, cannot be the reason why this nation would come to a standstill. We have pointed to many ways where we believe if government were to be willing to activate, monies can be raised. We make references to the leakages at the ports, and as somebody who was a spokesperson for, Revenue Mobilization Task Force and the previous regime, I know the quantum of resources that we lose at the ports through tax evasion, misclassification of goods, what we call re-exportation fraud, goods coming, and the pretext is that they are going to go to Burkina Faso, and because they are our landlocked neighbors, there are certain concessions and tax exemptions only for those goods to be sold in Ghana. People have their goods in boarded warehouses, whereupon before you go to get your goods to sell, you must pay the tax. They connive with elements in customs, they sell the goods without the knowledge of the state, and they get away with it. I mean, so there are many ways, and we've even looked at the budget. We've given many examples. The Auditor General's report, the quantum of resources dissipated that cannot be accounted for, 12 billion. My own sector, education, we can give many examples. Procurement of past questions, very questionable. Procurement of masters, questionable. Figures to finance the free senior high school policy, 2.4 billion cannot be accounted for. On and on and on and on. So we believe that, look, the e-levy cannot be the only avenue for this government to mobilize resources. And then they say, if the e-levy is not passed, we cannot build roads. Really? E-levy, 7 billion. The challenges that we have in terms of our roads, is it 7 billion a year? If we cannot do that with ESLA, is it 7 billion a year that can do our roads? So, come to think of it, I think there is still a lot that Ghanaians can expect.
But there's no time.
The biggest issue remains, the most contentious issue remains the e-levy. And on that matter, there is no consensus. There's not even a conversation going on anymore. I can tell you that.
But
there is no conversation.
It's Monday the final day
sides
for this conversation.
But we were to rise yesterday.
So you've extended this to Monday.
Exactly.
So if you don't get consensus on this matter on Monday?
There's not going to be consensus. It's going to be a vote. We have decided. Our 137 will vote against e-levy. Whether they get their 137 plus the independent is not our cup of tea. That is not our problem. We are going to deliver 137 no against e-levy.
Okay.
Simplicity.
If they don't have the 137,
We will have our 137. That one I can guarantee you.
it will be the first time.
No, not this time. Not this time. We know that our political fortunes are tied to rejecting this because Ghanaians have said so, individually and collectively. There is no way I can go to my constituency when I stood on the floor of Parliament to indicate that I can't support this because my constituents told me if I vote for it, I should remain in Accra. And I will not, so I will vote against it.
Okay, so it's a big no coming Monday from the Member of Parliament for Busa South, at least, Dr. Clement Apak, but he's also guaranteeing 137 no's. Dr. Rashid Rahman, you indicated you wanted to make a comment quickly.
Yes, I very.
Dr. Rahman, please put your video on.
Yes, very interesting to hear my brother, Dr. Park. But how would the NDC respond to those who say you went in there with a number of demands, and like you yourself indicated, there were a number of concessions that were given to you, and I heard your deputy minority whip the other day. We were on a program together, also saying, yes, truth be told, there were a number of concessions that were given to the NDC. Wouldn't many Ghanaians say it is very, very unfair on your part, to say that on that one matter there is no compromise at all, from your side, and that you are not going to move an inch. I don't know how you respond to that. In terms of many saying, if we are looking for compromise and we are looking for consensus, it must take two, to reach consensus. And it looks like the other side has done a lot, has given in to some of your demands, yet you are not prepared to give in even an inch. How do you respond to that?
Well, Dr. Rashid, that is a legitimate question to ask. But from the onset, we made our position very clear. If you look at the issues that we raised in terms of the five that we all know that are listed, one of the biggest was the e-levy. Unfortunately, on that one, they decided not to move. And so we have our default position, and that is where we are. And you see, the response to Dr. Rashid's question is that we truly believe that our position is reflective of the position of Ghanaians. Yes. Because, it is not just the NDC, there are even persons who are affiliated to the MPP who have all come public to say that, this e-levy thing is a lazy man's approach to trying to mobilize national revenue. Some have alluded to the fact that it is not justified and ought to be scrapped. I speak about the likes of Kwam Pienim and many others, Rekubro Bay, and many other people. Some have said that reduce it, but others have also come to support our position. So yes, we can be accused of perhaps being dogged in our position, but that doggedness, we believe, is informed by our principles and the fact that Ghanaians have said that this is not acceptable. That is why we are not just saying e-levy, we are saying killer e-levy. Killer. Because it is going to impose a lot more hardships on Ghanaians. And we cannot be seen to be accessories to compounding the hardships that Ghanaians are already facing, especially so when this government has failed to account for massive resources put at its disposal. They have not. Account for COVID-related resources, you won't do it. Account for investments in educational interventions, you will not do it. You are giving loans to already existing factories under 1D, 1F, which we don't feel is justified. We've taken you on, you will not respond. So we are left with no option than to hold their feet to the fire. In any case, if the e-levy does not pass, they can always go to the IMF.
Okay. I hope that answers the question, but I have to move the conversation on now and go to the second phase and introduce the matter of COVID. And we'll take a quick break before that. The president has spoken on what needs to be done to prevent a fourth wave. We've also heard from the Ghana Health Service, who have announced some kind of a regime. Some have criticized it, some have lauded it, to stem that wave in Vaccination Month, which is the month of December. We are told that in January, we are going to have quite a few issues if you are not vaccinated, according to the Ghana Health Service. So we'll delve into that particular matter when we return. I will change my cast a bit. Dr. Park stays and will be joined by Dr. Kwame Sapon-Siedu from the CDD and Professor Alfred Yosin, who is the head of Department of Community Health at the University of Ghana Medical School. The Big Issue, be right back. Welcome back to The Big Issue. We're not going to have a conversation about COVID, but let me just take a couple of messages that have come through on this matter. AU Farouk Tamale North says, good morning, Godfred and your panelists. The dramatic scenes in Parliament these days is worrisome. If care is not taken, our democracy will be in trouble. And when we cannot take common decisions for the good of the country. Good morning, Godfred. This is Peter Dell Sr. from Akosombo. He says, I hope the majority comes to a concrete consensus with the minority in the reviewing process of the budget, especially for us Ghanaians to be happy in our own country. I know the president is a listening father. Good morning to Dr. Apak Abbasignab.
Yes.
This person has mentioned your full name.
That is my bulletin name, so okay. It's probably one of my constituents.
Yeah, he says he's very proud of you, and he's written something in the local language. I cannot read it.
Is that so?
But I'll send it to you.
Send it to me, I'll read it.
Much respect to the speakers from Xylix Dwayne. Kwekula Pa says, if the first deputy speaker can reverse the decision of the substantive speaker, then one day if the speaker becomes the acting president, one day he can take similar action. Prince Henry Kofodia says, good morning. If digitization and digitalization reduces corruption, then why do we have an increase in financial irregularities as reported by the AG? Over the same period, we claim the digital drive is deepening. Hashtag the big issue says the future is pregnant. So keep your messages coming through. 0549986996 and 0550585832. So the government and the Ghana Health Service trying to stem a fourth wave of the virus as cases of the Omicron variant in communities are on the ascendancy, according to reports. Now, the service also indicated that facilities for the management of COVID-19 cases are being overstretched. So they have spelled out revised safety protocols for events during the festive season. And the question I'm asking is, did the safety protocols go into effect yesterday? Mm-hmm. Because I saw the crowd at the stadium yesterday. Mm-hmm. Dr. Kuma Buaji, I don't know if you watched.
They were boogieing. We could hear them from Parliament.
I don't know if you watched what happened at the stadium yesterday, but I'm just telling you, if we have revised safety protocols and what happened at the stadium happened, well, all right. Now, he has explained that this is to ensure strict compliance with safety protocols. So we'll hear from him, and then we will talk about these new protocols and the ability to enforce the protocols, as well as the conversation about increasing the vaccination mandate. We'll have that conversation with Professor Alfred Yosin, and then Dr. Kwame Sapon-Siedu, who will join Franklin Kujo and Dr. Park to have this discussion. So let's hear from Dr. Kuma Buaji for a bit, and then come in studio.
According to the Ghana Health Service, the Greater Accra continues to be the hotspot of the virus. The Director General of the service, Dr. Patrick Kuma Buaji, urged the public to strictly adhere to COVID-19 safety protocols to prevent a fourth wave, adding that facilities to manage COVID-19 cases were overstretched.
Even though there are very few cases on admission and no critical case currently, the number of people getting admission is mild cases are also increasing. More importantly is the number of cases of travelers at the airport. We had 83 cases in October this year, 241 cases in December, and I will show the comparison over last year as we go on. But December, as at the 15th, as at yesterday, we have already recorded 484 cases. And as a result, our isolation centers are being stretched, and we have expanded the number of locations where people are being detained.
Dr. Kumar spelled out revised safety protocols for events during the festive season.
The capacity for indoor events must not go beyond 25% of the existing capacity of that facility to ensure social distance. We all know that indoor areas is the place where the spread is highest. And we have also made our teams ready, that all those organizing that should actually invite a team to come and assist them in the setting to make sure it is safe. We already always have this, all COVID protocols to be observed. But that's just in writing. When you go there, nothing is getting observed. Now we want to be part of the team that set up the place to ensure that exit, entrance, spacing, etc. is appropriately done and also maintained to ensure that we really mean that all COVID protocols are being observed.
The Ghana Health Service has in recent months embarked on the drive to get people to take mandatory COVID-19 vaccine shots. However, a cross-section of the public is still adamant in taking the jab. Dr. Patrick Kumar emphasized on the need to vaccinate.
The delivery strategy is virtually taking the vaccine to the people. And that is why we are going to schools, that's why we are going to workplaces, churches, mosques, and markets, lorry parks, sports stadia, and house to house, and every district and every region, based on their peculiar situation, devises a strategy that allows them to reach the people, while we also intensify communication to also avert all these issues of miscommunication in terms.
So that was Dr. Patrick Kumar. And let me just bring in Professor Alfred Eyorsin. Professor Eyorsin, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am well. Always a pleasure to hear you speak. He's the head of Department Community Health at the University of Ghana Medical School. Dr. Kwame Sapon-Asiedu has also joined us. He's a fellow from the CDD. He's also quite a regular on the big issue when we discuss COVID issues. Good morning, Dr. Sapon-Asiedu.
Good morning.
Thank you for making time. So I guess I will begin the conversation from Dr. Asiedu and then go to Professor Eyorsin before I get to Franklin and Dr. Park again. Dr. Asiedu, what have you made of the presser given by Dr. Kumar Boaji this week outlining what the strategy is to potentially stem this fourth wave? Are you convinced by it?
Thanks, and good morning to fellow panelists. Convinced for me is not the word, and I say so very advisedly. And I do so because you need to look at the trajectory of the microorganism we're dealing with. Or you need to look at the fact that a lot has changed with this particular variant compared with all the other variants we've had to deal with. The first thing that has changed is what you hear bandied around the S-drop and all that. It's simply a change in the structure of the microorganism that is allowing it to differentiate itself from the other variants and as a result become more transmissible. That's what it's done. And what do I mean by it's become more transmissible? If you look at the data that has been released yesterday by Oxford University and some from South Africa as well, its reproduction rate in the throat alone is 70 times more than Delta. And that's scary. That's the first thing. The second thing is in a vaccinated population like the UK, where 85% of the adult population have had 2 jabs and about 44% have had a 3rd jab, the effective reproductive number is between 3 and 5. If you compare that to the effective reproductive number currently of the Delta, which is between 1 and 1.2 in the same population, you see how quickly this can spread. What it simply means is if one person gets Omicron, he is going to, even in a vaccinated population, highly vaccinated population, going to infect about 3 to 5 people. And each of those 3 to 5 people are going to infect another 3 to 5 people. Whereas if it's Delta, it's about 1 to 1 or at best 1 to 1.2. So the exponential growth is huge. And you can see the spike go on in the UK. For example, now in Scotland, it's taking over. In South Africa, it's taking over. In London, it's taking over. In Wales, it's about 44%. So those are scary numbers coming out. The slight positive is the fact that it is emerging that the disease is milder. But that is not enough saving grace, because when you're dealing with fragile health systems, you need to know that hospitalization is a proportion of the global number of people who get infected. And therefore, if you have 100 people infected with Delta and 1% are going to get infected, that's one person. But if you have 500 people because of the exponential growth and 1%, that's 5. So anything that we have to do, we have to be looking at it as a slightly larger scale factor. Then you look at it from your resources. And you heard Dr. Abuaje talk about these resources already being stretched. And I'm sure Prof. Yossi would be in the area would tell, because I've been speaking in the background with some of our colleagues who work in the health system, and even some of our colleagues are getting reinfected. And we know that the numbers are getting a bit scary. So if you look at it from that standpoint, Accra is a hotspot, great. So you have the Kolibus, you have the UGMCs, you have the RAGE, you have the police, you have the infectious disease center. As we start going into the periphery, if the numbers continue spreading that way, the quality of care is going to drop, because they don't have the expertise and specialities that you find in the Accras, the Kumasis, the Cape Coast, and the holes where the teaching hospitals are. And when that starts dropping, though disease is mild, you might get an increased mortality. So if you look at our trajectory, coming back to the data that Dr. Abuaje presented, 1,301 active cases on the 14th. Go back to the Ghana Health Service website, which is what they have now on there. It's 937 as at the 12th. That tells you how quickly the active cases have gone up. And that should be of concern to us. So in a matter of days, we are talking about roughly about 500, 600 new cases being added. If the data that Dr. Abuaje presented is compared with the data that is on the Ghana Health Service website, that, for me, is the biggest red flag. So if you're like me, who then looks at the models, you are looking at it and saying 28 days post-infection is where deaths are measured for, and that's where the excess deaths are measured. So you are thinking between the 6th and the 9th of January, if we are not purposeful and we don't change our behaviors, we are going to have a ticking time bomb on our hand. And so it's not about what the Ghana Health Service is doing or not doing. They are doing their best. It is about what the trajectory is telling us, and the fact that we see people planning events that are going to accelerate the trajectory, and that should be of concern to us. So that's where I'd leave it for now.
Now, you spoke about the fear of this in the periphery, and I'm adding the question of vaccine hesitancy to this as we move on into that conversation, because you admit that they say this is milder, and that seems to be a message that gets carried along, because people will ask you, people will tell you, well, we don't really see what is happening, especially in the periphery. How do we contend with that particular perception?
Well, you see, when you talk about mild disease, I'm currently in the UK. Even when we have the flu virus and it's mild, depending on its transmissibility, sometimes you have higher mortality compared with a more virulent one. And that is why, even if you look at the flu vaccines, you realize that the vaccines for over 65s are slightly different from the vaccines for under 65s. There's the quadrivalent, which has 4 different strains. And then there's the trivalent, which has 3 different strains. Because they realize that there's a 1 extra strain that when affects under 65s, mortality is piecework. It doesn't happen a lot. But when it goes over the 65s with their comorbidities, unfortunately, they pop away a lot more. Now, you're looking at a number of things that are happening in Ghana. if you look at when we started our vaccination and when a lot of people had their second dose, you must also remember that the lag time between the first and second doses were slightly longer, not because of anyone's making, but because of the constraint in the vaccine supply chain, especially when Serum Institute of India couldn't deliver because of the uptick in India. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them had their second dose about 6 months ago. And for people like that, they are getting into what we call the antibody titer waning phase. That's why when you come into the UKs and other things, they are given a third dose to augment the antibody level. But that alone is not a bad thing because they have what we call the T-cell immunity as well, which allows the immune system to identify the virus. But the real problem they have is the susceptibility ratio. What do I mean by that? I try to break these things down so they are very simple because not a lot of people are like Dr. Yossi who I can see notice that. When you look at immunity conferment, there are two components. There's a personal immunity, which is the 70% and 50%. You hear the the vaccine is 99% effective against hospitalization, 70% against new disease and all that. That is the personal protection. But that is only intact when the community protection, that's where the word herd immunity comes in. The number of people who are vaccinated around you such that the virus is constrained from moving to person, one, so that its transmission potential is dropped and its propensity to mutate is obliterated as well. We don't have that in Ghana. We have only 6% fully vaccinated, of which some are going into the waning phase. That concerns me. And now we're going into a festive season where disproportionately, the ones who are unvaccinated, who are the young ones, because it's us, the young ones who are being bloody-minded and saying they're not going to take the vaccine, are the ones who are going to go and do the jamming. And then they are going to come into their homes to come and infect their parents. And their parents are the ones who are going to then get hospitalized. And that is what concerns me. So there's a lot about the vaccine hesitancy, and that is why I keep saying that at this point, it's not about what government does or what the Ghana Health Service does. It's about what all of us do by breaking down the immunological information, the epidemiological information, so that the average person on the street can understand that your life is not just in your own hands, but you probably have your parents' lives, your friends' parents' lives because you go into their house, acquaintances who may have low immunity but may not know, because in Ghana there are a lot of people with autoimmune diseases who do not even have a clue that they have these diseases. So you are holding the integrity of a larger society in your hands than you think. It's not just down to your personal protection. And that is why I keep telling people that even if you've had 20 jabs, please wear your mask. Please social distance and be purposeful in the choice of social gatherings you go to. If we don't do that, then we're going to have a problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kwame Sapoi-Sedu. And Professor Yosin, I will ask the question from the point of, I find it particularly disappointing that, and it's a point Dr. Sapoi-Sedu ended on, the breakdown of the information for the general populace. Here we are saying we're entering a fourth wave. We are ramping up vaccination. Omicron is dangerous, so everybody should be wary. But we do not get a feel of the ramped up information breakdown from authorities. Some are also saying, well, the media should do more. The media is doing what it can do, and yes, certainly should do more. But the responsibility is largely on the state to provide the education. And there are those who are saying, frankly, the state is not doing enough when it comes to this Omicron virus. The Omicron variant, let me put it that way.
Yes, in fact, Dr. Asiedu, I must say, has done an excellent job of communicating some of the information that really we need to get out there. And I think that is the way we should go. I agree with you. The risk communication component of our intervention has always been the weak link of the things we do. Much as the service tries, the ministry tries, there is always a limitation to how much they are able to do, how appropriate the information is packaged for the ordinary Ghanaian and in a language and the setting that they will be able to understand and appreciate. It is also not easy when you are dealing with a population with characteristics such as ours. where literacy levels and ignorance and cultural traditional beliefs all combine in a way to make adoption of healthful behaviors difficult. It is, mind you, it's not only about Omicron now. We've been preaching family planning over years, and still the myths and misconceptions are still persisting. So it is really a major challenge going ahead, and Dr. Asiedu has rightfully said, we as individuals should, and especially those of us who understand the issue, should be ambassadors and know that it is not only your life, but the lives of others are at risk. Rightfully, government, Ghana Health Service, others can do their bit, and they are rightfully supposed to do so because it is their responsibility. But at the end of the day, it is the individual who gets infected. It's the family who loses their loved ones that are at the brunt of everything. And therefore, as individuals, as communities, as leaders, we should take it upon ourselves as a responsibility. In the height of it, we had traditional authorities leading by example. And as you said, some of these things have waned over time. And we must let the people know that really this is posing a danger, much as we get to know that it is a milder form of disease and all that Dr. Asiedu told us. It is true. It is its ability to spread rapidly and therefore attacks many people, most of whom might not be vaccinated, most of whom might have underlying conditions that they don't know, and most of whom might be aged at home, and the young ones will bring to them. That is where the war is. There are many more people that get infected. It's not everybody that will manifest overt disease, but once they have underlying conditions, they have some personal risk, then their risk of hospitalization increases, and that's why our health system will be overly stretched. Again, what we need to avert our minds to is that since we got into the country the first 2 cases in March 2020, these health workers have been working. And I can tell you, it's been stressful. They are getting to their wit's end. They are physically tired, emotionally drained. And therefore, anything that goes beyond what we are currently experiencing, that's where the challenges are. The ability to manage this critically ill patient, that's where the risk of mortality may increase, not necessarily because of the severity of the disease, but because of the accompanying issues. Health workers, their ability to cope, mental stability, emotionally being strong. This has been going on for almost 20 months plus, and we are involved, and we see that these workers are physically, emotionally drained, and they can only take as much. And therefore, it is important that any effort the country is making, all and sundry should support it, because our health system is not in a position to tolerate high rises in shorter times. And when many more people are infected and get sick, that is where the challenge is. So much as we've done our bit in containing the numbers, we need to do more even at this festive occasion. If you are an event organizer, it behooves on you the responsibility to ensure that all the safety thing is not just in writing, it's not just about saying it, that protocols will be observed when in fact on the ground, as we saw yesterday, will not be taken into consideration. And the law enforcement agencies, Ghana Health Service, you know they can only do as much, and they can't be everywhere in every home. When you have communities and people organizing family parties, individual community events, it is well now impossible for these agencies to be able to contain all this. So the responsibility is on us as individuals, especially event organizers, family members who intend to organize programs. It is our responsibility to take the safety of our loved ones and others very seriously, especially at this time, so that by the first, second week of January, we wouldn't be where we don't want to be.
Well, what have you made of the ramp up in vaccination? We are told that per the numbers, we intended to vaccinate 20 million. It's still a target that it has not changed. We are somewhere around 7 million, and we are already in December. Vaccines seem to be coming in at the last check. We seem to have been able to bring in around 12 million vaccines. But there seems to be controversy over this. What have you made of the ramp up in vaccination attempts?
Yes. We started vaccination in March. We gave 350,000 persons, and then the second doses delayed through the world political economy, as Dr. Asiedu said, and the unavailability of vaccine supply chain. So there was a lag phase, and then we started vaccinating again. And the issue of hesitancy and unwillingness, and also access point. If you interview people, apart from their unwillingness to vaccinate, they also make the case of, oh, I don't want to join queues, I have a busy schedule, all that. And that is why it is important that Ghana Health Service, Ministry of Health, bring the vaccination as close to where people live as possible. And that's what they're trying to do. Send it to the marketplaces, send it to the schools, send it to the lorry stations, send it to the churches, send it to the mosques. If there are traditional events, send it there, send it to the sports stadium. All these are important activities that we need to undertake. Once vaccines are available now, we need to send the vaccine to the people whilst the education continues. And we need to let people know that all these myths, all these misconceptions, we started vaccination in Ghana as far back as 1978. We continue to say our children continue to be vaccinated. And if anybody wants to target a population and do anything untoward to that population, it is always the children that you target. That is the next generation. Our children have been vaccinating for close to 40 years. Our women are still reproducing, our men are still performing. And these are the major issues people have. And this we continue to say are myths. And therefore, we need to encourage in public health measures. You will do all this, but at a point when you see that all the effort in trying to get people to consider the options are failing, then we need to turn to legislation. That is what happened to tobacco. People have rights to smoke, but at a point we need to legislate. You can't smoke in public places, much as it is your right. You can't do this when the health of others are at risk. And that is where we are gradually moving towards, that people should be made to vaccinate. Because as Dr. Asiedu, for example, said, it is not only your health that is at risk. Your right is important, but your misbehavior, your unwillingness is putting others at risk. It is not only you getting vaccinated that will protect the nation. The herd immunity, as we say, if A doesn't vaccinate, B doesn't vaccinate, C doesn't vaccinate. They are all individuals. But cumulatively, how are we going to achieve herd immunity that will protect the citizenry? And that's where the government, the authority, the nation comes in to protect the health of the citizenry in whatever form, shape that is legally, ethically, and morally acceptable. We need to do that because you're not vaccinating, mine not vaccinating, somebody else is not vaccinating, even though we are individual, cumulatively will not enable the nation to achieve herd immunity, which is also very important for the people around you, protecting vulnerable groups. How do we get there? That is the question. And then we must consider other measures that may not necessarily be pleasant, but in public health emergencies, these are worth considering.
And let me get back to Dr. Sapon Asiedu on this. Now, you are currently in a place that has a certain kind of vaccine mandate. And my question to you is, observing what the Ghana Health Service has announced and what they intend to do in January, where they've said there'll be 4 categories who they intend to compulsorily vaccinate. They've spoken about the fact that you might need your COVID card to be able to access certain places. In the environment that you are in, it's built up to allow for these things because other circumstances come in to mitigate the inconveniences you will suffer. But some also, the reason why perhaps it has become quite divisive in Ghana is there are thoughts that, well, we don't have our environment as built up as other places. So if you bring in this kind of vaccine mandate, you might end up not getting the kind of impact that you want.
Thanks, Kojo. It's interesting when I hear people make these arguments. I'd want to start by saying, I'll come to where I live and work. But I want to start by saying that if you look at our legislation, pre-independence, vaccine mandates have always been part of our legislation. In fact, it has been in our legislative framework since 1952, when the eradication of smallpox was going on. Ever since, we've had vaccine mandates. And I'll give you just one vaccine mandate that we all hold, but we forget it's a mandate. When you are traveling, which of you doesn't have a yellow card? Read the back of your yellow card. The reason why you bear it is that if you get to any port of entry and you are not able to show within reasonable limits that you have been vaccinated against yellow fever, a public vaccinator can vaccinate you or exclude you from entering the country. That's a vaccine mandate. So we have had that and nobody has complained. Now, if you go into our Public Health Act, from 20 to 25 talks about vaccine mandates and how they come into force. They talk about the need for an executive instrument. And for that executive instrument then to trigger compulsory vaccinations. But 26 talks specifically about ports of entry. That doesn't require an EI. You can be vaccinated if you cannot show proof that you are entering Ghana in a manner that makes the citizenry safe. So I am saying this to let everyone listening to me know that neither the government nor the Ghana Health Service has erred. I'm one who everyone knows, if the government gets it wrong, I'm the first to tell them that they've got it wrong. But on this occasion, at the ports, they've not got it wrong. Yes, they have put the cart before the horse regarding the Ghana Health Service putting the information out before the EI came out. But that doesn't affect the ports of entry because that is under 26 and not from 20 to 25. Now, coming to the UK, I work in the, both parts of the job I do is in the National Health Service. I am mandated to be vaccinated. I don't have a choice. And what they are saying is nobody's going to get rid of you, but if you are not vaccinated and you're in a patient-facing position, then you cannot come to work. And you should be able to show that you've been vaccinated. The same happens for social care. Why for adult social care and child social care? Because disproportionately, most of the mortalities in the UK came in the nursing homes and stuff like that. So you are mandated to be vaccinated. So, and even if you go to countries like Austria, they are being even more draconian than what's happening in the UK, where they are actually preventing people who are unvaccinated from going to supermarkets and other things. You can get your groceries delivered to you. Now, we talk about, we do not have a built-up system like that, granted. But we should have learned from when we had our lockdowns, where the government got into a place where it was either the people were locked down and they starved, or they opened up and we took a gamble with the pathogen, which is the COVID virus spreading. We opened up, and fortunately, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But that was dealing with a strain or a variant that had a reproductive number between 2 and 3. The Delta we're dealing with now has a reproductive number between 6 and 8, but an effective reproductive number in a vaccinated population between 1.1 and 1.2. Currently, we don't know Omicron's reproductive number. It's R0 in an unvaccinated population, but we know that it's about 3 to 5 times more virulent in a vaccinated population than Delta, which means its reproductive number is going to be above 8. That takes us into the category of smallpox. That takes us into the category of measles. That takes us into the category of yellow fever. And dare me say, when you're dealing in viruses in that category, Professor will tell you they are what we call biologically active agents stored at level 4. They are not child's playthings that we're going to be dealing with. And so, for me, when I have these conversations, I always go by the public health axiom of plan for the worst and aim for the best. So what's the worst case scenario based on the modeling we can see? And I say it doesn't look good. What's the best case scenario? We need to get vaccinated. We need to follow protocols and decrease the likelihood of spread. Be sensible with our social gatherings. And even if we have to do it, make sure that our masks are handy and all that. So I look at the worst case scenario and say, yes, go ahead with mandates. I would rather go to an event where people are vaccinated and even people are tested before they go into that, even if they are vaccinated, than to say, don't let us have mandates. Then I would end by saying this. So if we didn't have to have mandates, we've got Dr. Clement Tapak in there. The question I asked is, in 2004, why did they pass the Public Health Act? Is it because it's like what my friend Kwekwaza says, that Ghana, sometimes our laws are just advice. They are not supposed to be implemented? If that is what we are being told, and that's why when I hear the politicians bandy around with this whole mandate issue and compulsory vaccination, I ask them, but you passed the law. You passed the law. This law has been with us since 2012. Governments have changed. Before that, there was another law and it was in there. So are you trying to tell me that you just pass the laws and they become some advice? No, they cannot become advice. As a practitioner, I value my life. You pass the law for us to follow it. So let's go ahead, irrespective of who is in power, and follow it. We're in a public health emergency of international concern. And let's just follow the law. It's as simple as that. I don't even see the ambiguity here. I struggle actually to see the ambiguity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. Franklin, let's talk about the vaccination mandate. That's the one that has become divisive, and the vaccination at the airports and all that. There are those who say, well, it's just here comes the government again, looking at ways to inconvenience us and looking at ways to make money.
Oh, well, I guess with that conversation is not over, is it? And I think that the government is making frantic efforts again and looking for external resources. Didn't we just receive some 82 million, is it
yes.
euros or dollars?
82 million euros from the EIB.
Right. So, as I keep saying that politicians never waste a crisis moment, these things will continue. I think it is important that we all seek the accountability that we've tasked the government to give in terms of how the COVID funds had been utilized right from day one. And now we are hearing, and including the ones that are being charged at the port and what have been. So it's still a question to be asked. I think the point I really want to make in adding my voice to those of the professionals who just spoke about the need to be careful is that at the end of the day, well, it's not the government that is going to lie at the hospital, right? It's the people. Every individual who values his or her life must take this seriously. In fact, I was with my GP last week and she was quite emphatic that this Omicron wave is going to be quite, it's going to happen again, really. And I wasn't entirely surprised because given our attitudes towards public health issues, we seem to be laggards. So I think it's important that we all take this seriously. After the accountability, the day will come. So I don't think the government will run away. I think it's important that it also shows good faith. As they keep telling us that we should be careful, when they also organize their events here and there, they should also be mindful of the opportunities for spread. But I think the Ghana Health Service is overly stretched. I can see that. And so they can do but a part of their work. I guess everyone else needs to be serious with it and then take the precautionary measures of social distancing and indeed all the other protocols as well.
Thank you, Franklin. Dr. Park?
Well, I think that we have every reason to worry, and I agree with all the submissions made by my co-panelists. But you see, when we speak about the law and the role of Parliament, and I agree with Doctor. I mean, we have passed laws, and as has now become cliche, we pass some of the best laws, but do we give them effect? And that is why Doc made the reference that it's as though in Ghana we pass the laws, but they become advice. Because ideally, it is the executive, as you know, that is supposed to give effect to the law. As a legislature, we cannot give effect to the law. But I agree with him that we can do a lot more if we were to be willing to give effect to the laws that we have passed. But is it not strange to you, as you said in your preamble, although we laughed about it, but it is serious, that in the midst of all of this, we allow a concert, dance party, whatever you call it, to be organized in the national capital, in a stadium that we were told has been shut down
for renovation.
At this time, even after a sitting president has addressed the nation to lay bare the dangers that portend to us on the basis of this Omicron variant, which has been indicated to be about 25% much more infectious compared to the Delta variant. We still allow this to proceed in the national capital, where we have the National Sports Council leasing a stadium that is supposed to be
under renovation
for an event that by and large
broke every rule.
Clearly is going to serve as a conduit for mass infection. I mean, we were in Parliament, I told listeners earlier, we left Parliament around 1 a.m. But they were still busy jamming. You know, my office is on the 10th floor in the Job 600. You could see. So, are we really serious? In any case, if it is the case that the National Sports Council and its officers defied common sense, that is what I'll call it, common sense, because we shouldn't be doing this at this time. Don't we have a mayor of Accra? Is the presidency not in the national capital? This event was announced. It was known. The right thing, in my opinion, given what we know, would have been to stop it. We allowed it to happen, a super spreader. So as we speak now, in the next 2 or 3 days, if we begin to record increased number of cases in Greater Accra, who is responsible? Those who are supposed to ensure that the right thing is done. Those we have empowered. Yes, we also have personal responsibility. Yes. But there's a reason why we have a state and we select certain people and trust them with our resources, trusting that they will act in our interest even when we fail to see what our interest is. That is the purpose of government. They didn't do it. But you see, there's another point that I need to raise.
Please go on.
I have said that we have failed as a nation and government has failed colossally because we took our eyes off the ball. The level of public education is almost zero. If you look at the beginnings of the emergence of the virus, the approach, the level of agency, radio stations, TV stations, announcements were ongoing. As we speak today, how many radio stations are still running announcements or promotionals, reminding the citizens that this virus is still with us, we ought to continue to observe the protocols, and all the things that we were doing right, quote unquote, at the time. What has happened? I mean, even members of parliament, some of us continue to do that. I have continued to sponsor an ad on radio Fumbisi. Till date, every month I pay 1,000 Ghana cedis so that the message on COVID would continue. And yet central government, which has taken monies both from within and from donors to deal with this issue, has failed to continue. CTFM, it should be constant. And so when we even ask for accountability in the area of the COVID expenditure, these are some of the issues that makes our blood boil. With the quantum of resources made available on the back of dealing with COVID and COVID-related issues. Why is it that we are not seeing a continuous public education being funded by the state? Because like it or not, citizens, yes, many of us will try to do the right thing. But because we know we are constrained, we know we are fallible, we know that at some point we even forget what is detrimental to our own interests. That is why certain people are put in certain places with our resources to steer us in the right direction, and even when we go wrong, we are punished. But when you have what is going on, like what we just narrated about what went on last night, how do you justify that at this moment? So I think that we ought to call on government to make resources available. You've not told us what you've used the over 40 billion to do. And you've not told us that the money is finished. So get CTFM, get Joy, get Radio from BC, get the promotionals going to educate the people. Get the promotionals done in the various local languages. I mean, the media houses will do their best. Corporate social responsibility. But they are not charitable organizations. They have people to pay. They have equipment to maintain. They have journalists to move around. So the state should be putting resources to assist them to do what some of them are already doing on their own. And I think, quite honestly, my biggest challenge in as far as the fight against COVID-19 is concerned, and the conduct of government, is that government has reneged in funding and supporting aggressive and rigorous public education. And the sooner this can be reversed, the better for us. Because, I mean, I am not a scientist, but I read a lot. And if you heard, those who are much more knowledgeable, it is clear that if we do not put our house in order, the impact of this Omicron could be more devastating to us compared to the other strains that we have witnessed. Because this is a variant that does not even spare those of us who have been vaccinated, let alone those who have not. And we even have a situation where there is, if you like, a resistance by a segment of the population to vaccination. I'm sure you've heard the stories and the complaints from the Ghana Health Service. In fact, that resistance itself is a byproduct of the lack of adequate public education. Because we all know, we've read it online, we've read articles. I mean, the conspiracy theories are abound. What did we do to address those conspiracy theories? So, yes, we should take the protocols seriously. We should take personal responsibility, but the state still has a role to play to ensure that we are all safe. But should there be any increase in the numbers in the Greater Accra, the National Sports Council, the Mayor of Accra, and even the Jubilee House should be held accountable. And I hear that the MPP is holding its National Delegates Conference in Kumasi tomorrow. We will be monitoring and watching to see how well the protocols are observed. Okay. And let it not be the case that they would go violate every single rule and regulation and law, be allowed to walk away, and pastors would be arrested and prosecuted.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Clement Apak. And thank you very much, Professor Alfred Yorson and Dr. Kwame Sapon-Asiedu, for your time on this very important education. And you've heard my panelists on what needs to be done on this. So we'll enter the final leg of the program and deal with unemployment. Today I've tried to stack quite a few things in
these are heavy topics.
Yes, these are heavy topics.
Each of them could have taken the
entire program. Yes, but it's being the final program of the year.
Oh, is that so?
Oh, yes. Next week is Christmas.
Then I'm privileged.
Next week is Christmas. Yes. Good. So
next week is Christmas.
Yes.
You see what is going on in Parliament?
You're not seeing
a lot of us are not even looking at the
e-levy is worrying you.
Oh yes, the killer e-levy. You must prefix it with killer.
Well, the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kwabena, he has been very busy this week.
Crunching the numbers.
Yes, and he has called for rigorous, and those are his words, rigorous measures to be implemented to reduce unemployment in Ghana. Now, he's been presenting some data, so we will hear him on the unemployment rate in Ghana. We've discussed unemployment before, but there is something different about these numbers. And it's now 13.4%. So let me take a break, come back, hear the national statistician, the government statistician on this, and then I will bring in quickly Professor William Boating to break down these numbers alongside Senor Ejabin, who is a labor analyst, and then we will call it a wrap for 2021. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the big issue as we enter the final leg. Keep sending your messages 05499869996, 055058583. I'll do a final roundup of messages before we depart. But let's look at the numbers for unemployment as put out by the government statistician. So we'll hear him for about a minute or so as he explains the numbers. And then I'll bring in Professor William Boating to explain exactly what is going on.
That for every 66 people that we have in the country, you need 100 people to feed them. And that was the conversation around age dependency. The importance of the economic activity model is to drill down to find out whether with those within the age bracket, working age bracket would be in the position to support, one, those outside those age brackets, and two, whether they can drive the economy to get the transformation that we need. And this is what calls for a conversation around the unemployed and employment rate. So today we put out a figure which is indicating that 13.4 of our labor force. It's important we emphasize on that. So we are talking about those in the labor force, that is those who are employed and those who are unemployed, who are part of the age dependency that we did put out there. We have 1.5 million of them who are unemployed. So this reduces the 66 to every 100 people in terms of, it increases it because now there's going to be a lot more burden on those who are working. And indeed, those who are working is just about 9.9 million of the population. So let us not be excited with about 86.6% of them employed rate that we have in the country. What we now should think about is how do we reduce the unemployment rate of 13.4? And I make a further argument that this 13.4 at the national level is really being maxed at the disaggregated level, especially when you look at the different age cohorts. I also link this to the earlier release that we did, where we said that the economy is transitioning from a less children base to a youth board, where over time we're seeing that the 0 to 14 is shrinking, and we're seeing that the 15 to 60 is increasing, specifically 15 to 35. So this youth board, we should ensure that they are engaged in employment. But this is a situation where now, from the economic activity release, we are finding 32.8% of those within the 15 to 24 age bracket who are unemployed. And indeed, all of these people constitute the first-time job seekers. If you extend the youth bracket to those within 15 to 35 years, unlike the national picture where we see 13.4, we are seeing 19.7. So if you further disaggregate it by the different age cohorts, which requires policy intervention, then you appreciate the enormity of the unemployed problem that we have in the country. But as I indicated, unemployment is nothing that you can take for granted if you want to see macroeconomic transformation. It affects your inflationary rate, it affects your interest rate, it affects your GDP, and you cannot transform your economy with a high unemployment, especially when the youth have the highest rate of unemployment with about 32%.
That was the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kwabena, trying to explain the 13.4% unemployment rate that he revealed this week in a series of media engagements. And this is significant. And to explain the significance of this, I've brought in two people with knowledge in the matter. Professor William Boating is an economist. Prof, good morning.
Come again.
Prof, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on The Big Issue, and also good morning to Senor Ejabin, labor analyst. But Senor, just wait for me. Let me start with Professor Boating. Prof, the government statistician says we need rigorous measures. We hear unemployment numbers all the time. How worried should we be by hearing a 13.4% unemployment rate?
Well, I think we should be worried because unemployment is not a pleasant indicator if it is that high. And I will not go to talk about the fact that we need rigorous measures, but I will look at it from how implementation must be carried out. Because, I mean, if we take our mind back to, let's say, 1984, 83, when structure adjustment program came in, we have implemented a lot of measures to address unemployment. But the more we do it, the more we continue to have that problem. And I think it is worrying. You see 13.4, that by 13.4 adds up to about 1.5 million people. And that makes it very scary.
The government statisticians, Professor Samuel Kwabena, tried to categorize, and he says the big concern for him is the narrowing down of the 14 to 16 age bracket and the increase in the 16 to 35 age bracket, and that bulge need to find jobs. And it is something that is pretty worrisome because job creation also seems to be at a bit of a standstill at the moment. What is the way forward on this?
Well, I think let me start by saying that we need to look at the situation devoid of emotion, devoid of politics. Because many a time we are quick to compare figures and say, oh, it increased from this, hours have been decreased. And what I know is that we are able to compare the worst scenario and say, well, unemployment has come down, but we still have unemployment. So what the government statistician was trying to do is that we should avoid making comparison. Because if you look at the figures, the current figure that we have, 13.4%, should be looked at in its own merit. Because if you compare it with previous surveys, we are going to have a problem. Because the way the population census was conducted is different from how GLSS survey is conducted by asking questions about unemployment. And apart from that, the definition of unemployment, definition of employment keeps changing. And therefore, if you compare it, you may have a problem. For instance, if the rate was a bit low, based on the definition that was given in the past, and you see 13.4%, and then you panic, you may also implement one policy or the other, and you may not be able to achieve it. But what do we have to do when we are confronted with this? Godfrey, we have a lot of measures that have been implemented in Ghana. We had, if you remember, we have something we call PAMSCAD, Program of Action to Mitigate Social Cost of Adjustment, that was implemented in 1988 when we were having problems with the structural adjustment program because of the social consequences that we had. When we came to 2000, we had what we call the Skill Training and Employment Placement program, STEP, to be able to get people trained and get jobs for people. It didn't work. In 2006, we came up with National Youth Employment Program. It metamorphosed into GIDA, and now it is Youth Employment Agency. We have Ghana Enterprise Agency. We have NIEP. We continue to have so many agencies to address the same problem, but they are not well coordinated. So it means that we ourselves haven't sat down to understand the issue very well, but we keep pouring money. We keep continuing to add policies to it, but it doesn't solve the problem. The other side of it is that we need to understand the issue. And I'm very happy that my good friend, government statistician, said that those coming within the ages of 15 and 24 are where we need to look at. Because unemployment affects people in different ways. Because if you take those who are unemployed, we have those who are educated, those who are not educated. Even those who are educated, we also have people who have skills but don't have education. We have people who are educated but don't have skills. We have male, we have female. We have those in the urban areas, we have those in the rural areas. So if you try to come up with a policy of one size fits all, you will come back and address the same problem when the problem has not been addressed. We talk about entrepreneurship, but we forget that in Ghana or everywhere, not everybody can be an entrepreneur. And therefore, if we think that it is only entrepreneurship that can solve unemployment problem, and this is not the first time we're talking about entrepreneurship, we will continue to have the problem. One other thing that we need to do is to look at policy coherence. We are talking about entrepreneurship. We are training people in textile production, tie and dye, talking about tailors, talking about seamstress. But we haven't had any policy that will make imported garment to be less competitive with what we are producing. So if you get somebody into entrepreneurship in the production of textile, and that person is not able to compete with what is being imported, you are throwing money down the drain. Let's talk about, let's say, furniture production. We haven't come up with any policy that will make our local people competitive. We are talking about poultry. We are not, and then fishing. We are not trying to come up with a policy that will make our poultry farmers competitive, but we keep importing poultry, we keep importing fish everywhere. And when you want to solve problem and we have just one side policy, you will come back to have the same problem. Even donor agencies which are helping us, you have MasterCard Foundation, we have GIZ, we have Danida, we have UNDP, we have all these donor agencies that are rolling out one policy or the other. And they keep repeating the same thing. It means that we haven't even gone down to look at what the problem is, what are the challenges, and how we can address it. Look at different ways of addressing each problem with the unemployed. But when we put them together, then we are going to have the same problem. I will not be surprised if we continue to do the same thing. We will come here next 2 years when the GLSS 8 report comes, and then we'll have the same problem.
Interesting perspective, Professor Babwas. Let me talk to Senor Ejabing and see whether he shares your thoughts on the matter. Ejabing, good morning, Senor.
Good morning, Godfred. Let me say a good morning to Prof and then your other panelists. I think that I agree to a large extent with Prof on, the various issues that he has enumerated on the unemployment issue. Indeed, in my view, I am not too surprised at the number, because we have always said that apart from the fact that the definition that is often given to unemployment makes it difficult for us to get the true picture of it, at least the census has given us a clearer picture of what the problem is. And I would even say that this 13.4 does not represent the true and entire picture of unemployment. Because, well, I would say that the issue of underemployment is even much more trickier than unemployment. So if we're getting 13.4%, then those who are underemployed are going to take the number even higher. Having said that, the various interventions that have been put in place makes it difficult, as Prof has said, makes it difficult for us. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you, Senor. Go on.
Oh, okay. It makes it difficult for us to get to the bottom of the matter, because indeed, all the interventions and the various institutions that have been created to deal with unemployment have not yielded any much results so far. And I think that we need to think about putting together and consolidating all of these institutions into one body, so that it can be focused on the true creation of jobs and make sure that the job creation does happen. Then again, we need to go back to first principles of creating jobs. We need to be deliberate about it. Job creation will not happen by accident. And so government policy must really ensure that we target specific industries and sectors that will actually generate a job. I'm quite worried for the future, because the focus that has been given to job creation now, which is entrepreneurship, which I would call self-led employment, would really not generate the kind of results we want. Because truly, the issue of loans and loans management in this country has been a problem. Indeed, the figures of bad loans, even in the mainstream financial sector, has hovered around 20% of bad loans. Now, here we are, we're going to be giving loans to young people to go into ventures, entrepreneurial ventures, and create jobs for themselves and also for others. Problem is, we may have problems with monitoring the use of the monies. Disbursement of the monies may also bring some problems. But most importantly, recovering the loans may be a problem because, for example, if government changes and the next government does not put a lot of effort in continuing the initiative and also ensuring that people who have taken the loans pay back, then money would have gone down the drain. So I would just say that we need to be more deliberate about job creation and ensure that we create the jobs. Otherwise, the ramifications will come and haunt all of us.
Thank you very much for that, Senor Jabin, labor analyst. Dr. Clement Apak, you've heard the context has been created by Professor William Babwati, who says we need to put this in its proper picture. The definitions have changed. A few things have happened. So this particular population census has given us a clearer picture, a much better one than we've had previously, and then also outlined certain suggestions. So has Senor to address the problem. Your take on the numbers and the context that has been created?
Well, first of all, I think I agree with them. I mean, what they have said is factual, is truthful, it can be verified. We all agree that unemployment continues to be a big challenge. Of course, it's a global challenge, but specific to Africa and to Ghana, we are a youthful population. So we are having more young people who should be gainfully employed. Many of them, as was indicated, are educated, finished school, different levels, nurses, teachers, graduates, some with true master's degrees, and they can't find work. And then you have those who have not gone through formal education. And so, yes, it is a big problem, and it's a time bomb, we acknowledge. Because once you have the youth with the energy and passion not being engaged productively, sometimes not because of their own fault, because simply put, the opportunities are not there. And it is the role of the state to create the opportunities for employment opportunities to come into being, which they can then take advantage of. So it is a problem. But you see, one thing that was mentioned that caught my attention was the issue of policy inconsistency. And truly, that is one of our major challenges. For example, I am a member of parliament representing Bulsa South. We have one of the largest rice valleys. I mean, the Berenblisi Rice Valley, but we like to call it the Fumbisi Rice Valley and all of that. If we were to invest in it massively, clearly that would help cut down the quantity of rice that we import. Investing in it in a synergized way, where we would go from planting to harvesting to processing to marketing, and even using the byproduct to generate, power. I mean, the technology is there. We are not serious about doing that. All of this that I'm talking about would have created employment opportunities. We are importing rice. If you look at the figures of rice importation annually, I mean, you will be shocked. The quantum of resources.
Between 2017 and 2021,
exactly.
$1 billion
exactly
spent on rice import.
So this is where we have a comparative advantage. We have a policy to create employment. And yet, we are not investing in actualizing that policy. At the same time, we are allowing importation of rice, which then also works against what we have said we want to do. So the policy inconsistencies are also affecting not just rice, even tomatoes. Tomatoes. The quantity of tomato paste that we import from Spain, Italy, and even China these days, you will be shocked. When we have, irrigable lands, you go to the Upper East, Tono, Via, and across the country, we can produce tomatoes. But we are even importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso. That is how bad it is. Poultry. People are not even aware that we have started even importing guinea fowls. I confirm, from Belgium.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
That's news to me.
When we should be investing. Where I come from, that is where the guinea fowls are. I mean, you remember the old stories and those jokes about guinea fowls making their way to Burkina and what have you. Now we are actually bringing them from Belgium. So the policy inconsistencies are very worrisome. Then you juxtapose that with, programs like Planning for Food and Jobs. What was Planning for Food and Jobs supposed to achieve? One, to reduce our dependence on imports in the area of food, to create jobs, as the name says, Planning for Food, Abinchi, Nandita, and jobs. What has happened to it? What has happened to that program? One district, one factory. What was the thinking behind that? The impression that many of us got was that factories were going to be established in every district from the scratch. What did we see? We now saw a redesign or a reconfiguration of that concept to supporting already existing factories.
But the new numbers
How
say...
many more people are they going to employ?
150,000 per the government's new numbers.
Have you been able to verify that?
Well, that's what they told us.
Do you have a reason to believe that? But even if that is the case,
better position to
we've been asking questions. In fact, I asked a question to the Minister for Trade because in my constituency, they had made a decision to establish a rice processing factory. Processing facility. Till date, it's not complete. The minister said it was 80% complete. And I asked the number of people to employ. And I asked the capacity. He couldn't say. I asked for example, the number or if you like, tonnage. All of it. So you see, government has paid lip service to addressing the issue of unemployment. Because if you look at all the policies that government claims to have brought into being to address unemployment, none of them is doing the trick. So we can only point out the shortfalls and make proposals, which we continue to make. But if government does not pay heed and continues, the issue of youth unemployment or unemployment cannot be suppressed. Sooner or later, we will begin to feel the impact of not taking this matter seriously. I shudder to even think about some of the negative aspects of this level of unemployment that we are facing. And at some point, when people are hungry and they have no legitimate ways of upkeep, what do you think is going to be their option? Because, look, the essence of every life form is self-preservation. Think about that.
Okay. Franklin Kujo, Dr. Apak says let's think about that. But what did you make of the numbers? Your organization deals with employment and unemployment numbers. We seem to have some numbers that people in the space seem to trust, 13.4%. Your take?
And maybe for the first time, we are getting to the destination of believing in statistics, because it wasn't long ago that people were telling us about the inability to tell how many jobs have been created. And indeed, some came up with some figures that were later deemed to be fictitious. In any case, look, I think what we've been doing successively with every government over the last, if you like, 20 years or so has been sloganeering, really. Political sloganeering at trying to solve this problem of unemployment. It's either some GDA that, some NYA this, NEIP that, there's USTAT, there's U. I've lost track and lost count of these various initiatives. But see, the fundamental problem is that governments do not create jobs. Unfortunately, it looks as if you take a critical look at the budget, a successive budget, substantial amounts are allocated to these so-called job creation schemes. And then you ask yourself, what exactly is the value add to the economy through these schemes that have been created? Because presumably, if they were impactful, at least we should start seeing the lessening, should I call it the decreasing impact of the overall problem of unemployment. So my worry clearly has been that it looks to me that just as has been discussed this morning, that look, the policy incoherence is staring us right in the face. I think that's where we should tackle the problem from. I am not too sure that we've had a hand. I'm not too sure we can do this. We can actually do this. The problem has always been that government believes that they have to appropriate from us in order to create these schemes. Look at the e-levy thing. One of the significant areas the revenues are supposed to be spent will be the creation of employment, right? Or support entrepreneurship. And as Professor Robert said, it looks as if we are paying too much lip service to this hydra-headed problem called entrepreneurship. Government's role is to enable the system, make it easier for people to create jobs. This whole idea of government taking money and setting up factories and doing A, B, C, D, we've seen the results. Look at Commander. I mean, there's a politically motivated project, right? And many other projects that have since been, started. The reason we are not getting traction is that you cannot mix policy and politics. If you mix it at the level of, at the point of trying to create productive employment, you only have eggs on your face. And eventually you realize that you have created a monstrous system where people are coming out of school without having the wherewithal to be able to do things for themselves. Of late, what we hear is that government will not create jobs for you, or government has no job creating, government has no employment avenues for people, and that people should rather create jobs. Fair. That's a fair proposition to make. But how is that in sync with our educational systems as well? Look at what we are doing with our curriculum. We don't know whether we are doing the witch's dance. You dance twice forward and then you dance thrice, 4 or 5 backwards. I don't understand. So when Professor Babwatin and my good friends say that, look, there's a need to align policy with some pragmatism, this is exactly what is being suggested. Are we looking at the potential areas of future employment? I think we are. I think we are not giving it a much deeper thought. So until we move away from trying to sloganeer our way into development and the whole idea about unemployment or employment generation, I don't think we are going to be making head. Let's first of all ask for an accounting of exactly how impactful these initiatives have been. If for nothing at all, if we are not going to start from JIDA, for JIDA, we all saw what happened and the results, right? Let's look at how much money had been spent on creating, what was it again? The famous, the 600 million.
Is it NAPCO?
NAPCO. Is it NAPCO or NACO? Yeah.
NAPCO.
Right. You ask yourself, what has been the value addition? We spend billions of cedis every year trying to create these kinds of schemes. I think it's important we pause and ask ourselves, are we better off giving these monies as incentives or as, should I call it, as waivers for real entrepreneurs to create jobs and then actually mandate them to show us the numbers so that they can get all this reprieve? You know, I think that's what we should be doing. I thought I should make a quick point about this e-levy thing. I'm sorry, but I know
you have 1 minute.
Yeah, you know, it's all fine and dandy to hear that the telcos have agreed to a 25% reduction in the services they already give us. I mean, I'm worried because my point is, why don't we ensure that percentage reduction, which will have to verify by the way, is actually internalized in the government's own proposition. I don't know why that government is still dogged trying to collect 1.75%. Are they saying that they are better at using the money than if the telcos were giving us those, should I say, percentage reduction ourselves? I hope you get my drift.
I get you.
The point I'm making is that the savings is supposed to be to benefit us. It's not supposed to be benefiting government. For the very reasons I've just outlined, that we don't know how much of this money will eventually end up in creating into employment schemes that essentially will add no value to the economy.
Interesting comments from Franklin Kujo, and that is how I will call it a year from the big issue. Thank you very much for spending the time with us. My name is Godfred Akoto. Big thank you to Dr. Clement Apak for making time with us.
I'm your chief vandal, so
yes.
say that.
Yes.
Nada is over. We end on a vandal note.
Yes, himself, a former deputy chief vandal.
My good friend Egbert Fable.
Yes, of high repute. We don't play with him.
Yeah.
But I hope you spend the holidays well. Take care of yourself. Observe
protocols.
All the protocols. It's not just about
Very
the vaccination.
Important. Whether you have been vaccinated or not.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Respect all the protocols. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the Christmas holidays. See you when we return.
So now we can reconvene next year.